Hi, Tony DeWitt here, Missouri Appellate attorney and a guy who likes to make the law make sense on YouTube. Well, last night I sat down with the film from yesterday's first day of the Schabusiness trial, and I'm not sure I can show a whole lot of this because it tends to violate the monetization guidelines here on YouTube. And not to mention the fact that it's just really pretty heinous when you get right down to it. So I thought what I would do is I would point out some things that perhaps might not be obvious in the opening statements of both the prosecutor and the defense, and then look at a couple of snippets of testimony and talk about what's going on. So with that introduction, let's move right to the video.
The evidence in this case will show that in the early morning of February 22nd of 2022, the defendant strangled her friend Shad Theory to death using a dog collar. Over the next few days, in the first phase of trial, the state of Wisconsin, myself, District Attorney Lassay, will present a number of witnesses who will testify about what happened in this case, and that'll show and demonstrate to you that the defendant committed these acts. You'll hear testimony and evidence will show that in the early morning of February 23rd, is a Tuesday, kind of a normal cold February in Wisconsin, at a house on Stony Brook Lane. It's sort of, if you know the area, the west side of Green Bay, Fireman's Park, West Mason Street, that area. Tara Pakinich is kind of in her home and is awoken by a storm door shut. There's a door that's sort of abuts the garage, driveway to the residence, normal single-family home in the area. Hears a storm door close and is awoken from sleep. It's early morning, 2:30, 3 a.m., somewhere in there. She goes and gets up. It kind of wakes her up, and she's aware at that point that her son, Shad, was in the basement with a friend, Taylor. They had been over the day before, February 22nd, February 21st, in that time frame. And she kind of goes and sees what's going on, right? We hear this noise late in the night, early in the morning, and she sees the basement light is on. At that point, she's aware that, they were down there throughout the day of the 22nd, and she goes down and sees, because the light's on in the basement, and she's seeing what's going on. And you'll see sort of the scene, sort of go down the stairs to a normal basement. It's partially finished on one half, partially like a utility area, laundry, that kind of storage area. And right next to the stairs, there's a 5-gallon bucket.
Now, we can't get into what's in the bucket or any of the other material, but I think what's really interesting here is the fact that one of the things I criticized in the Melly trial was the lack of storytelling, but this gentleman, even though he seems to have trouble with the word awakened, he's doing a much better job of communicating and just talking his way through what happened. He knows what's happened. He's rehearsed this opening probably a dozen times. He knows what he's going to say. He knows what he's going to tell the jury. He's sticking to the facts, and he's not engaging in any argument. And of course, argument is one of the things that happens at the end of the case, not at the beginning. And the defense attorney isn't objecting to anything that he's saying, and I think he probably expects that same courtesy when he gets up to do his opening. But then, in a little bit, he talks about her confession, because apparently she spoke with detectives and admitted many of the things that are key issues in this case.
You'll hear the defendant describe that what apparently begins as a somewhat sexual encounter escalates to a dog collar being placed around Shad's neck, and the defendant quite vividly describes what she then did. She's yanking on the chain. She's describing what's happening to Shad. It's evidence that you'll hear, and you'll hear it from the defendant's own mouth, that shows that this is an intentional act. It's not one pull of a gun trigger. It's an intense act. You'll hear about that from Vincent Tranquita, Dr. Tranquita as well.
It's really important when you are describing something that is, frankly, fairly disgusting, uh, to not put a lot of emphasis or emotion into the description, because it is for the jury to manufacture its own emotion in this case. You won't have to manufacture anything for them. And so he is just matter of factly stating what happened here with the confession and telling the jury that they're going to hear it and they're going to see it and it's going to come in from the defendant's own mouth. And that's important because when there is a confession in a case, in about 99% of the cases, that results in a conviction. Now, there are exceptions, I suppose, but for the most part, juries tend to believe when somebody confesses that they actually did it. It's important for him to get this out in front of the jury so that when this testimony comes in my opinion, that's probably going to seal the deal with regard to guilt in this case, if that indeed comes in this case. So one of the things that isn't always obvious is that when a prosecutor is making an opening statement, no determination has been made, except a preliminary determination, that that confession is going to come in, that it was knowing and voluntary. So again, it's always got to be careful about not putting your cart in front of your horse, but he has to tell them that that's going to happen, and he has to trust that he will have admissible evidence to get in. I've seen it in cases several times where a party will say, we're going to show you this evidence, we're going to show you that evidence, we're going to show you the other evidence. And then before they get ready to show that evidence, the defendant or the plaintiff objects and says, no, you can't show that because this needs to be excluded for this reason. And the court agrees, and all of a sudden they've made promises now that they can't keep. So that's part of the give and take of trial. It's part of the art of combat in trial, frankly, knowing what to hold back and what to lead with. So I think that's going to be something that will definitely come in this case, because it was videotaped, and any opportunity that anybody had to criticize the voluntariness can pretty much be rebutted from just watching the confession on tape. So then the defense attorney got up to do his opening statement, and I thought he did a very good job of setting the tone for what his case is going to be about. In many respects, this case is a lot like the Stouch case, whatever it was, in Colorado, where you had a really horrific crime. And in this particular case, what's going to happen is you're going to have much the same sort of defense strategy here. You're just not going to have as flamboyant an attorney. This guy is a worker and a thinker, and he is very calm when it comes to what goes on in trial, as I think you'll see as we progress through this case.
Your Honor, may it please the court, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Mr. Lassay, Mr. Saunders. Thank you for your service as jurors. We definitely appreciate you being here, serving on the jury, because a jury is an integral part of the court process. Without you jurors, our court system simply couldn't function. The lawyers couldn't do their job, and the court couldn't do its job. So we appreciate your time, your attention to detail, and your anticipated focus over the next several days that you're going to put into this very serious case. Now, in this case, the state of Wisconsin, through the Brown County District Attorney's Office, has the complete burden of proof. The state must prove to all of you jurors, beyond a reasonable doubt, each and every element of the crimes charged beyond a reasonable doubt. The United States Constitution presumes that every person who is accused of a crime is presumed to be innocent. And in this case, Taylor Schabusiness is presumed to be innocent. She doesn't have to prove anything. The defense does not have to prove anything in this case. Why? Because the complete burden of proof rests with the District Attorney's Office, with the state of Wisconsin.
Well, that was very well done. His entire opening, I thought, was very well done. Basically, he said, just keep an open mind. And that's probably going to be the best he can manufacture here, because I think the Green Bay Police did a good job with this, and I think the prosecution is going to do a fairly good job with this. Now, one of the first people to testify for the state was one of the first responding officers. Now, I think it's important to note that there's a big difference here in terms, again, of storytelling. You start with the beginning. Although you give them a preview of the end, you don't start with the end. You start with the beginning and how we got involved, how the police became involved in this case. And basically that was through a 911 call. And so the prosecutor puts on the stand the first responding officer. And one of the things that you have to do anytime you put a witness on is you have to lay a foundation for their testimony and explain in summary fashion how it is that they are qualified to be there and give their testimony in this case. And that is essentially what the prosecutor does in the first few moments with the first officer on scene. Let's take a listen.
Thank you. Officer, how are you employed?
With the City of Green Bay Police Department as a patrol officer.
And how long have you been employed as a patrol officer with Green Bay PD?
Since April of 2019.
And is that the totality of your law enforcement experience?
I worked about a year and a half prior to that with City of Manitowoc.
So about 2017 is when your law enforcement career started?
Correct.
And can you outline for us what training you received to be a police officer?
I went through the 720 Academy at NWTC. Before that, I went to UW-Platteville for my 4-year bachelor degree in criminal justice.
And what are some of your regular duties as a police officer?
Taking any dispatch call that comes out, traffic, that kind of stuff.
Sort of respond to the initial incidents?
Correct.
And then do you kind of conduct follow-through investigation as well?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Officer, I want to ask you about February 23rd of 2022. Do you recall if you were working in that capacity on that day?
Yes, I was.
Directing your attention to about 3:25 a.m., were you dispatched to a call around that time?
Yes.
To where were you dispatched?
The address was 829 Stony Brook, City of Green Bay, Brown County.
Now, the prosecutor here could give a seminar on the proper way to ask questions on direct examination. You notice he doesn't assume anything, and he doesn't ask questions that essentially give the person the answer. And it was, how did you come to be involved in this case? What happened? I got a dispatch call, and where were you sent to? Were you sent somewhere? Yes. Where were you sent to? I was sent to this particular location. And then, who did you talk to at that location? That sort of thing. This is all laying a foundation, and he's doing it very, very nicely. It contrasts quite a bit with what you get to do on cross-examination, and I want to show that with the defense's cross-examination, and then I want to have a couple of comments about that.
You were working for the Green Bay Police Department on February 23rd of 2022, correct?
Yes, I was.
And you were on uniform patrol in a fully marked squad, correct?
Yes.
And you were dispatched over to 829 Stony Brook Lane, correct?
Correct.
That area is kind of by Fireman's Park where all the kids go sledding, correct?
Yes.
It's behind it?
It would be to the east of it.
Okay. Who dispatched you over to this location?
It was a dispatch call, and we were the only available units in the city, so Officer Plank and I responded.
Okay. And were you told that there was a suspicious situation over there?
I believe that's how the call was coded.
And the complainant was the male that you heard on there, correct?
Yes.
Did you later find him to be Stephen Hendricks?
Correct.
Who was the first person you talked to when you got to the Stony Brook Lane residence?
Female by the first name of Tara.
Was it Tara Pakinich?
Yes.
And that video, the officer that first entered was Officer Plonky, correct?
That is correct.
And then you followed behind?
Yes.
Now, there's really not much point at this point in the cross-examination. He's just going over stuff we've already heard and that has been painfully obvious from the video. They showed the body camera of this officer and got him to talk about what he saw on the video. And of course, the video shows exactly what he saw. And so at this point, what the attorney is doing is he's, I think, trying to build a little bit of rapport before he gets into more pointed questions here in just a second.
Now, did you have gloves on at all?
Yes, I did.
What kind of gloves?
Just regular patrol gloves.
Okay. When did you put those gloves on, do you know?
Typically, I put them on as soon as I get out of my car to go to any call.
But for this particular night, did you have them on?
Yes, I did.
When did you put them on?
Typically, I put them on right after I get out of my car, because I believe I would have put them on at that point.
Right after you got out of the squad car?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have them on when you went in that side door?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And did you keep them on during the entire time that you were in the Stony Brook Lane house?
Yes.
You removed the towel?
I did remove the towel from the bucket.
And then at some point, did you ask Officer Plunky to come and take a look as well?
Yes, I did.
At any point in time after you were done looking, did you put the towel back?
Once it was removed from the bucket, it was not placed back on the bucket.
Was it just allowed to lay on the floor, or what? Tell me what you know about that.
I believe it was just moved to the side and it was put on the floor next to the bucket.
So I'm not sure what the purpose really is in this line of questioning, because the evidence is what the evidence is, and it's not like there's some big mystery about what happened because the woman confessed. But he's trying to do a good job and show due diligence in cross-examining these witnesses so that there is not later on a claim of ineffective assistance of counsel or something else. I noticed when there were pictures that were put up today during the course of the trial with one of the detectives, he didn't object to any of that coming in, even though the photos were in many respects quite grisly. And of course, the reason he didn't do that is because if he is going to challenge anything at all, he's probably going to challenge the penalty phase in this case, because that's the point where he's hopefully going to be able to make a difference. And that's where he has an expert who can help him. So that's what I have out of this today. Again, basically because the descriptions were so graphic and so off-putting. If you want to hear the whole testimony, you can do that on either Law and Crime or Court TV. Both of them have this testimony. Both of them have this video. And it's probably worthwhile to do that if you are interested in that. For the most part, it was pretty disgusting to me, but you know, everybody has their own level of what they can tolerate. Thank you very much for watching, and thanks to everybody who is a new subscriber especially. I very much appreciate it, and I appreciate all the good feedback and commentary that I get on my channel, and I can't thank you enough for that. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. You know, we always love for it if you would like and share and subscribe. But again, that's up to you. If you find this valuable, I'd appreciate it if you would like it and share it and tell everybody you can. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors' friends. Finally, if you have the opportunity today, do something to combat hunger in your neighborhood. Most places have a food bank, and if they don't, doubtless a church in your neighborhood has a pantry that they sometimes help people with. It would be so nice if you would take a moment and help out somebody who is hungry. That is an awful way to go to bed at night. So thank you for watching. Have a great day. Catch me down here at the beach next time. If you like this video, here are a few others you might try, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a terrific day, guys.